Hello there. This is gonna be part two to the first video I made called White Repertoire. So now we're just going to be studying openings with the black pieces, defenses. Here are some of my favorites that are good for beginners, easy to learn, and just have very simple basic ideas. So first we're gonna start off with they play d4. Now this is gonna be called the Indian game here. And I want you to play this, which is called the King's Indian Defense. You play g6 and intend to fianchetto your bishop on g7. Now, this is what normal theory looks like. You have a normal development variation, g6 in here. It's basically in English. The best move, there's two ideas for black in this position. c5 and e5. Both are very similar. But before you do any of that, make sure your king's castle. So sorry, I accidentally played d6 before I think of the bishop. This, this is what I meant to do. Now, in this position, they might play something like bishop 2. Now you're gonna want to before you do anything, castle here. Always, this is always a good rule of thumb. Before you do any of these two ideas that I mentioned, castle your king first, and I'll be explaining why in a second. So now you're going to play you're gonna play c5, or you can play e5, which I'll mention in a second. You're gonna want to play c5. The reason you're gonna want to play c5 is it fights for the center, since the King's Indian defense doesn't really much fight for the center. So c5 is at least giving not just going down without a fight. So after takes, the idea here is if takes, then you get to open the file. They don't take and play someone like this. I think pretty sure the best move is to take them because it brings the knight back, and then your development is just going to be faster. You don't have to take necessarily. You can just play normal development like c6, knight c6, a castle, and it's fine. These kings are staring at each other, but it's fine. Now we're going to be discussing e5. So e5 also fights for the center. Obviously, make sure your king's castle before you do this, and I'm going to show you why actually here. If you play this move too early, not this move, both moves. If you play this move too early, takes. Now they have this queen x d8, and now you can learn castle. They might queenside castle check, and the position might get very tedious for you in a small amount of time. So always castle. Anyways, normally castle. Now e5, and it's literally the same exact idea as c5, except it's the e pawns, e and d pawns that are getting traded this time. Takes, same exact thing. Still have a c pawn, which you can actually play later on. And if you can find a way to get this square, maybe like this, or you can just normal development. I think you should just play something. Okay, let's just say here. I think b6 is not a bad move. You also have just develop normally. I think developing normally is just the best idea. Just develop normally. Don't do anything too complicated. And yeah, you'll be fine. Kings in defense for you. Those are basic ideas. We're gonna move on to another opening. Two openings. I'll give you a bonus one. I'm feeling good today. These are after e4. So the openings we're going to be studying respectively are French defense and Caro. I'm not going to go too much into the French because this was mainly supposed to be the Caro. So here, I just give you a little bonus one. So French defense. This is e6. Usual move, d5. And not sorry, d4. Then you're going to play d5. Mistakes, obviously you take back. Variation. You're usually going to run into advanced variation. And the best move is always c5. c5 is always the best move here. Fights for the center. And basically any time you have some sort of you have this sort of French center that you got here. If you have this French center that you got here, c5 is usually a good move in openings. This can transpose into a bunch of stuff. Here, let me show you how this can transpose. So let's say e4, the Caro, here, 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 here. Let's say someone here, and would you look at that? It's the same exact thing, except instead of taking, white has played knight here. The only difference is that it's white move. It's the only difference. That's why you shouldn't really play this, Carl. It's fine. So basically, white has their knight out. It's only different. It's literally this. See the same? Not sorry. Same exact French center. So usually, if you have a French center in the Caro, you're gonna play c5. Anyways, back to the French defense. Back to the that's not the French defense. Back to the French defense. So, if they play knight c3 early, usually you should just have normal development. Like knight f6. If they play this, this is the Steinitz variation, the classical. You're always gonna want to go put your knight on a d7. Yeah, the computer says so. Knight d7. It may look like you're blocking in your bishop, but it's actually fine. The position is absolutely fine. You know why? Because you're not really losing here. There's nothing. There's not much. You can always just play like c5 and stuff like that, and try to get your bishop out this way. Maybe you can fianchetto. So let's say something like bishop like this. After you've done your development, you can you play usually if this pawn is only defended by the knight by a knight f3 knight, you usually take this. But now you have two center pawns. They only have one. And now you're probably gonna either you're gonna want to move this knight, obviously. But let's say you couldn't. You can always just play something. You can always just play something that maybe if you can kettle the bishop like this. You can just say if you kettle the bishop, protect the pawn. Boom, your bishop's out now. You can kettle the bishop. It's not that bad as you would think it is. Anyway, defense. Let's go back to its more passive brother. When I say passive, that does not mean worse. The Caro. Now, usual moves after this are either the knight c3 or d4. Now we're just gonna discuss d4 really quickly, and now we're gonna discuss the advanced. There also is a fantasy variation, which you'll see a lot in maybe beginner levels. But your idea, you always want to take the pawn because look at the king. This is the diagonal is so weak that if you play someone like this, that diagonal is so weak. Now you're just gonna want to put your e pawn like this. Cannot really take because then I have this, and that's just kind of worse for you now. So yeah, I don't recommend playing the fantasy variation usually. If you're the lower, let's say like 600 elo and below, sure, this is fine. Okay, now let's not discuss fantasy variation. We're gonna discuss the advanced variation. Now you're always gonna want to play the Botvinnik Karl's defense, which Mikhail Botvinnik used to use, which is c5. And this is how you transpose into the French actually. Again, French center. This is the way to transpose into the French. Usually, if these three pawns form a big pawn chain from c3 to e5, you're not gonna want to take because after takes, this just becomes a center pawn again, and your position isn't very too comfortable. So don't take here. You're just gonna play You're just gonna want to play knight c6. Try to get the bishop out somewhere. Maybe if you can kettle it in the future. You want to get this knight. You're going to try to develop this bishop. Maybe try to get the knight here. That's the idea. Now, other than the Gotland and Carlsfence, obviously if they take, you're going to want to play, obviously, e6. E6 is always going to be the best move. So this, no real way to defend your pawn other than this, which, it's okay. I don't recommend playing this because you can always just play e5. Or you can play knight c6, which are both good. So a5 takes, and you can take with the rook here. You can take with the bishop. with both these pawns, the best one is probably queen x a5 check. If here, you already know what to do. You don't even, no, not here, and then you're going to try to go here, maybe get here, develop your bishop and whatnot. You'll be fine. That's the accepted. That's when you accept it. Bottom cross defense, when you accept it. So bottom cross defense. If you run into this, like I said earlier, just normal development. And one more thing here. They have this move, and just have normal development in this pace. Doesn't matter when they take, you can always play e6 in the future. Usually, yeah, just play e6 in the future and you'll be fine. Develop this bishop. Make sure you do not get it blocked in. That's a difference between the Caro and the French. The French is a little bit better in terms of really fighting for the center with c5 and stuff like that, but the light squared bishop gets blocked in by this pawn. And the difference is you can't really play this because in the French, literally your first move is to block in the bishop. So it's aggressive, but it's the cost of blocking in this bishop. So you're usually in stuff like this, if they ever check you, let's just say for some reason you have e6 and now they check you here. Your bishop's blocked in, right? It has nowhere to go. So obviously you're going to want to trade it for this pretty good bishop. Has view over everything. So you're going to want to trade this bishop off, obviously, with a bishop d7. Usually the best move isn't necessarily to take. You should probably just move the bishop somewhere else, or you can just have normal development. Knight ge2 is a good move. You have knight f3. And you're going to want to trade off this bishop if you're going to trade off this bishop, because this bishop is pretty trash. You could also play cx-d4 now, which are both good moves. I'd recommend cx-b5 if you're a little bit lower rated, but I think this is a good move as well. After takes, you can still trade it off. It's bad arrow. This you can still trade it off, so it's fine. It's xb5. You're just like, whoa, the knights are scary. Yeah. Just kick them out. And where are they gonna go? Right? Just play a6, and then the knight is gone. Has to go back. Then you're going to play bishop here, bishop c5, and you're fine. So that's the Caro, that's the French, and that's the King's Indian defense that we have discussed. I also do want to note something. These are mistakes I see with black that people play a lot. Now, first off, I want to teach you all something about the Petrov defense. The Petrov defense, in my opinion, is not a good opening. If you're playing for a win, do not play this opening. Also, do not fall for this. I've seen many players fall for this. This is a very old trap. You just play this. And no matter what pawn they defend it with, or if they move the knight, that's even worse. Watch this. If they move the knight, you have this, which is just an absolutely free queen. By the way, just saying that. So yeah, you have this. And that's a free queen. Do not recommend the Petrov defense don't recommend, number one. Number two, I do not recommend the Damiano. This is for a specific reason. I've made a video about this, the Damiano trap. You can actually take this pawn. I know, right? This is a trap. It's called the Damiano Gambit, actually. So if takes, then you have check. Do not play this. You actually, the only move here is to move the king. Unless you play g6, which obviously you take the pawn to check. You can block, and then you take this, and you're winning. Block with the bishop. You take this, and you're still winning. And this king is terrible, and you're winning. So those are the two openings I do not recommend as playing black. Those two openings I do not recommend. Also, bonus one that I don't recommend, Scandinavian. This one's for obvious reasons. This is not too bad of a move, but do not take back with the queen. If you're gonna play this, I don't recommend taking back with the queen. I recommend the modern variation. Because if you take back with the queen, boom. Also, don't blunder this. Please don't blunder this. Don't blunder this. By the way, if you do end up playing the Scandinavian, now it has to go back, and it's like, bruv, where are your pieces? All your pieces are on the back rank. I have 2 pieces out, ready to play this, and just slightly better. Anyways, that was it for this video. If you guys want me to do something similar like this, maybe something about tactics or stuff like that, discussing openings deeper, just give me heads up in the comments, and I'll certainly take a look, and maybe that'll be the next video. All right, bye bye. Don't blunder your queen.